And so the biggest, I think, risk for businesses this year and going forward is not making the wrong forecast, but it's assuming that somehow stability will return and the world that we've known for the last 25 years of free and unfettered globalization, stability, and international cooperation will return by default. The UK grows by being strategically useful in the areas where it has a competitive advantage. In geopolitics and geopolitical risk management, resilience beats prediction every single time.
Welcome to the Insight in 15. I'm Krishna Grenville-Goebel, Director in KPMG's Board Leadership Centre. I'm joined today by Stefano Moritsch, KPMG International's Global Geopolitics Lead. We'll be looking into geopolitics risks and opportunities for business leaders. And as usual, we've got a huge amount to cover in 15 minutes, so we're going to get straight into it. Stefano, lots going on in the world of geopolitics and in particular global conflicts. What do business leaders need to know right now? And what are the biggest risks that you see business leaders need to contend with?
Thank you so much, Krishna. Great to be with you. And I think the most important thing that business leaders really need to know and capture is that geopolitical volatility stopped being episodic, but is very much systemic now. In a way, it's sad. Nothing really shocks us anymore. You mentioned conflict now, more than 60 conflicts around the world, the highest level since the end of World War II. We have the ongoing war in Ukraine, revolts in Iran, events obviously in Venezuela, now tensions around the Arctic and Greenland in particular, US, China, technology competition. These are not really isolated crises. They're all interlocking pressure points that affect different areas of business: energy prices, supply chains, capital flows, regulation, security environment, and ultimately growth opportunities. So at the heart of it, I think it's important for business leaders to understand that the epicenter of this volatility is an historical shift from the end of the so-called unipolar world. Now we're in a multipolar world. We're in the middle of what we call a geopolitical recession. What does it mean? It means more competition. It means power politics and state intervention into the economy becoming more ubiquitous, and especially in those sectors that are essential for national security: technology, pharmaceuticals, food, energy supply chains, defense, of course. And we see a lack of effectiveness of international rules and standards and multilateral institutions, if you will, a bit of a return to the law of the jungle. And so the biggest, I think, risk for businesses this year and going forward is not making the wrong forecast, but it's assuming that somehow stability will return and the world that we've known for the last 25 years of free and unfettered globalization, stability, and international cooperation will return by default. That's how I would shape and frame the year as we start.
When we spoke to you last year, Stefano, about geopolitics, the focus was very much on US tariffs, and that's gone a bit quiet at the moment. What's the latest on that?
So tariffs have not gone completely quiet, but they have gone mainstream, if you will. There's more certainty rather than last year. So that's positive. The biggest shift, I think, is global, not just focusing on the US. I think we are seeing a proliferation of trade restrictive measures gradually since the pandemic. A paradigm shift, if you will, from trade liberalization and efficiency of trade to trade resiliency and diversification. So in 2024, 2025, we've seen almost 3,000 new trade restrictive measures being imposed all around the world to secure domestic supplies, to friendshore, onshore, or reshore critical supply chains. And this is structural, it's permanent, and businesses have to plan for this. So businesses shouldn't look at potential tariff rollbacks. They should plan for tariff permanence. But at the same time, we have more policy certainty around those tariffs than last year. And in a way that helps with the planning process. On top of that, we've seen a lot of countries not responding with retaliatory tariffs, but looking at diversification strategies, as I said before.
And are countries and businesses operating on the basis that everything could change in 5 years, or is this the new normal?
I think it is the new normal. It is the new normal. This reshaping of trade around geopolitics, around national security interests, rather than just looking at economic efficiency. So there is going to be additional planning required. I think that the tariff policy shift in the US is an historical one. It's the largest increase since the 1930s. But as I said before, is relatively comforting. As I would say, it makes us cautiously optimistic. The fact that most countries did not really fully retaliate. And now we see a flurry of trade negotiations. Think about the UK-India free trade agreement was frozen for many months, many years, and now has been revamped. Same thing with the EU-Mercosur agreement. So there are efforts to diversify, if you hedge, if you want, the tariff risks, and that will generate opportunities, but it will take time. Old supply chains, old trade relationships will fall off or be reshaped, and new ones will be formed, and that's where the opportunity lies.
What other geopolitical trends do business leaders need to be on top of, and what are the opportunities?
In terms of both opportunity and risk, I have to talk about technology. Uh, we are extremely excited about the AI revolution. Same thing with quantum technology. These are incredible technologies that can really provide a lot of solutions to the problems that we're seeing today, particularly in terms of productivity, loss of margins for businesses. They can be a panacea, if you will, but with many, many caveats because of the geopolitical environment. And so the AI driven technology cold war that we are experiencing is probably the most important of that. And we're seeing businesses and even country having to think really carefully where to align their technology stack depending on this competition, whether it is models, whether it is semiconductors, whether it is data, not to speak about the necessity of energy and water resources that are needed to power the data centers that will foster the AI revolution. So that creates a few business impacts. I would say diverging tax standards, data localization, and multiple compliance regimes as the key ones to look for.
Okay, and specifically for the UK, what does that mean in terms of opportunities for growth, do you think?
Look, the UK's challenge and opportunity at the same time, every risk has an opportunity side to it, is that is not really a block leader anymore. So in a more fragmenting world where power really matters, the fact that is not a block leader anymore, that reduces a little bit of the bargaining power. But at the same time, that also means that it's more nimble in terms of diplomacy, and it's also highly connected globally and really trying to foster that global connectivity. So growth and opportunities come from remaining a trusted services hub, remaining, the power of London as a critical financial center. Uh, in AI and technology, probably not going to be a leader, but there are some areas, whether the financing of the technology or even the governance of the technology, where the UK can really play a fundamental role. And then there are strong credentials in defense tech. And we now have the biggest increase in defense spending in the world in Europe, right, off the back of NATO commitments of June last year to achieve up to 3% of GDP spend. So the UK grows by being strategically useful in the areas where it has a competitive advantage, like the ones we listed, rather than being politically in the driving seat across every global issue.
Does that mean that the UK, or you see the UK moving back to become a bit closer to the EU?
Look, that I believe is also an area of opportunity and growth. We know many things about the Brexit process, and we know that there has been a negative impact in terms of increasing the cost of trade with the single biggest trading partner of the UK. So anything that can be done to reset the relationship, to remove some of that red tape and facilitate that trade again and reduce the cost of that trade will be a boon.
And do you think the UK US special relationship still exists?
Um, Look, I think it does, but I think it's moving from ideology, romanticism, if you want, historical, to something more pragmatic. So it's going to be very important for, I think, the UK and others to navigate this new moment where geopolitics is making trade and defense and security relations way more pragmatic. And that pragmatism is going to be key. But as I said before, in any area like defense, security, tech, cyber resilience, AI governance and compliance, where the UK can really add value, I think that would definitely help. And I do believe that there is a mutual interest to maintain their relations.
Given all that, is the UK an attractive destination for investment?
Yes, the UK is still attractive, but I guess it probably no longer really sells itself automatically. Maybe that's a good way to put it. Investors, what do they want? They want regulatory stability, they want infrastructure, they want skills, and clarity about policy, and also where the UK stands from a geopolitical perspective. So, if the UK position itself as pro-innovation, predictable, and globally interconnected, interoperable, capital will continue to flow. If not, it will wait around and find alternatives. I think that's, in a nutshell, what's going to happen.
What steps do business leaders need to make to manage risks to their businesses?
I think elevating geopolitical trends assessment all the way to the board or at least to the executive level is fundamental today. And I say trends and not risk for a reason, because I think it's important to look at the opportunities as we try to do now, this few minutes, not just the risk. So having a framework in place that really understands the baseline in terms of the exposure of a specific business to some of these geopolitical trends, because no geopolitical trends is the same for two businesses, right? It's very much tailored. Someone might be very exposed to some of the dynamics in the South China Sea, in the Middle East, in Latin America, and others can be completely, sheltered from that. So stress test strategy against these geopolitical trends and not just looking at the economics. That's the key. So have that lens of political trends, geopolitical trends. Map exposures to conflict zones and trade shock points in terms of supply chains. Supply chains continuity and resilience is absolutely key, and knowing where the potential vulnerabilities are and where the opportunities are to maybe shift some of those supply chains in energy, in data logistics, in inputs, in exports, everything. And overall, build resilience and not just efficiency. I know that's costly, right? But in a way, in this more volatile world, it is becoming an imperative to have that extra cost, to have resilience that gives you peace of mind rather than having to engage in crisis management all the time.
So there's a lot of opportunities there mixed in with kind of what you're saying in terms of repositioning risk as looking at the trends and how you can anticipate them. So that's really clear. We're almost out of time, Stefano. So one of the things we always ask our guests is what's their sort of top tip. So what's the one key thing you think business leaders should do?
Look, Krishna, I think everyone in 2026, apart from stop being shocked by some of these geopolitical developments, should also stop asking, what do we think will happen? Try to engage in clairvoyance, in crystal ball reading, and start instead asking, what do we do if different things happen? So, in a way, have not try to predict the future, but map up different possible futures and your response to those possible futures so that you're prepared. Because in geopolitics and geopolitical risk management, resilience beats prediction every single time.
Okay, well, that's our 15 minutes up. We've just got time to say thanks to Stefano. Don't miss our latest episodes by subscribing to Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time for the Insight in 15.